It was supposed to be a normal cave dive. The team was experienced, the plan was solid, and Eric Hahn had done this many times before. But sometimes, even the most routine missions hide unexpected danger. Within just 1 minute, everything changed. A sudden, unexplained action underwater turned a carefully planned operation into a fight for life. What happened to Eric that day shocked even the most seasoned divers. This is not just a story of a dive, it's a chilling reminder of how quickly things can go wrong when you're over 190 feet deep, surrounded by nothing but silence and stone. Before we dive into video, please subscribe our channel. As always, viewer discretion is advised. On the morning of October 14th, 2022, a team of highly skilled cave divers gathered at Roaring River Cave in Missouri. Their mission was to explore and survey the underwater passages that stretch deep into the earth. Every diver had a specific role to play, and teamwork was essential for success and safety. Eric Hahn, just 27 years old, was chosen for a key support position. His job wasn't to go the deepest, but his role was just as important. He would be placing stage bottles, which are extra gas cylinders, at 2 key depths, 130 feet and 190 feet. These bottles would act as emergency gas stations for divers going farther into the cave. Alongside him was Diver 3, who would help in positioning these cylinders. 2 other divers, called the Deep Team, were assigned to push into the furthest unexplored sections of the cave. Everyone knew the risks. Roaring River Cave is no ordinary dive site. It's deep, dark, and complex, with narrow tunnels and sudden drops. The entire dive plan was mapped out carefully. From depth levels to emergency procedures, everything was discussed in detail before anyone even touched the water. It was all about precision, timing, and trust. This wasn't a recreational dive, it was a technical expedition requiring advanced training and nerves of steel. Eric Hahn understood this. He was ready. The team was confident. What they didn't know was that this dive would soon become a fight for survival. Before entering the water, the divers followed a strict pre-dive routine. In technical cave diving, there's no room for error. Every piece of equipment must work perfectly, and every diver must be fully prepared. Eric Hahn, like the rest of the team, carefully checked his gear. This included his closed-circuit rebreather, a special device that recycles the diver's breathing gas. Unlike normal scuba tanks, rebreathers remove carbon dioxide and add small, controlled amounts of oxygen. This allows divers to stay underwater much longer, but it also requires constant attention and knowledge. If something goes wrong, it can become dangerous very fast. The team also reviewed their gas mixtures. At deep levels, breathing normal air can cause serious problems like nitrogen narcosis or oxygen toxicity. That's why technical divers use carefully prepared gas blends. Each diver checked their tanks, backup regulators, and dive computers. They also made sure their guideline, a strong rope that helps divers find their way out, was ready to follow. The environment inside Roaring River Cave could change quickly. One wrong move could stir up silt from the cave floor, turning clear water into total darkness. That's why planning was so detailed. Every diver had a role, a timeline, and a backup plan. Eric wasn't just diving, he was part of a highly coordinated team effort. The mood was serious but focused. With everything checked and in place, they moved to the cave's edge, unaware that the day was about to take a devastating turn. At exactly 11:12 a.m., Eric Hahn began his descent into the cold, dark waters of Roaring River Cave. Holding onto the guideline, the rope that leads in and out of the cave, he slowly disappeared beneath the surface. The deeper he went, the colder it got, and the sunlight from above faded quickly. Within minutes, he was surrounded by total darkness, with only his powerful dive lights cutting through the black water. The cave itself was both beautiful and dangerous. The underwater passages were shaped by limestone, forming tight spaces, sudden drops, and winding tunnels. Some parts were so narrow that divers had to squeeze through carefully. Other sections opened into wide chambers that felt endless. But every part of the cave was filled with silent pressure, both from the water and from the weight of what could go wrong. As Eric moved deeper, he stayed close to the guideline and focused on his task, placing extra gas cylinders at key depths. These bottles would act as lifelines for the divers going farther into the cave. So far, everything was going according to plan. Eric was calm, steady, and alert, just like he had trained to be. But deep cave diving is unforgiving. Small mistakes can lead to big problems, and once you're far below the surface, getting help is almost impossible. Eric was now more than 150 feet underwater, surrounded by silence, stone, and shadow, completely cut off from the world above. And soon, something would go terribly wrong. 12 minutes into the dive, at 11:24 a.m., Eric Hahn reached the planned depth of 190 feet, 58 meters, the deepest point where he was assigned to place a stage bottle. Down here, the pressure was intense and the water was icy cold. Visibility was still manageable, and the beam from his dive light revealed the rough walls of the cave and the particles floating around him. At this depth, every breath had to be monitored. The rebreather he wore had to deliver the perfect balance of oxygen, or things could go wrong in seconds. At that moment, he encountered a member of the deep dive team. The brief interaction between the two was calm and routine. The other diver later reported that Hahn looked completely fine, focused, alert, and not showing any signs of confusion or distress. It was a quick check-in, just a nod, and maybe a hand signal to confirm everything was okay. Then they went their separate ways. Eric continued with his job of placing the stage bottle securely at the tie-off point. It was one of those moments where everything seemed perfectly in control. The dive was progressing as planned, and everyone was doing what they were supposed to. No one expected that within just one more minute, the entire mission would take a drastic turn. What started as a routine operation was about to become an emergency. Eric's calm at 190 feet would be the last time he appeared in control. Just 1 minute after the calm encounter at 190 feet, everything changed. At 11:25 a.m., Eric Hahn suddenly slammed into Diver 3, his dive partner, without warning. It wasn't a gentle bump. It was forceful and chaotic. Moments later, Eric began to swim upward rapidly, a highly dangerous move at such a deep depth. In technical diving, a fast ascent can be deadly due to pressure changes and the risk of decompression sickness. But even more alarming was why he was doing it. He wasn't signaling. He wasn't following any emergency procedure. It was as if panic had taken over. Diver 3 instantly realized something was wrong. This was not just a mistake, it was an emergency. Eric's sudden behavior didn't match anything they'd trained for. It was as if his instincts were fighting against logic. Diver 3 chased after him, trying to stay close, knowing that something serious was happening, something that could turn deadly within seconds. As Eric continued upward, his actions became more frantic. He wasn't communicating, and he wasn't in control. The situation had changed from a calm, controlled dive into a desperate and unpredictable crisis. Deep underwater, where every second counts and help is far away, Diver 3 knew they were now in a race against time to understand what was happening and try to save a teammate who was spiraling into disaster. What had triggered this reaction? Nobody knew yet, but whatever it was unfolding fast and dangerously. Diver 3 managed to catch up with Eric around 165 feet, 50 meters, where Eric had struck a rocky ceiling during his rapid, uncontrolled ascent. He was clearly in trouble fighting with his rebreather mouthpiece and struggling to breathe. Something was seriously wrong. Diver 3 tried to help, reaching for Eric's bailout regulator, which is a backup breathing source separate from the main system. But before it could be fully positioned, Eric made a critical mistake. He pulled his rebreather mouthpiece out without sealing it. Water immediately rushed into the breathing loop, making the situation even worse. As Diver 3 attempted to purge and insert the bailout regulator, Eric's body began to convulse violently. It was a terrifying sight, his limbs jerking uncontrollably in the water. These seizures were consistent with oxygen toxicity, a dangerous condition that can occur when a diver breathes gas with too much oxygen under pressure. At this depth, even a small miscalculation in oxygen levels can trigger a seizure, leading to unconsciousness and complete loss of control. Diver 3 did everything possible holding Eric, trying to manage the regulator, and staying oriented in the cave's narrow, silty passage. But it was nearly impossible to control a seizing diver in pitch-black water at great depth, with equipment failing and visibility dropping by the second. They were both sinking, the fine silt rising around them like underwater fog. The weight of the emergency, the physical effort, and the fear of becoming lost added to the chaos. The rescue attempt was slipping out of reach. As Diver 3 fought to save Eric, the situation quickly grew worse. The The violent struggle had kicked up clouds of fine silt from the cave floor, completely destroying visibility. The once clear water had turned into a dark, muddy haze. Even more terrifying, Diver 3 had lost sight of the guideline, the only safe path back to the surface. Without it, both divers were at serious risk of becoming lost in the cave system, where even experienced divers have died, trying to find their way out. Physically exhausted and running low on gas, Diver 3 realized a hard truth. The rescue attempt could not continue. Eric was unresponsive, and every passing second made it more dangerous to stay. Meanwhile, another diver from the deep team had already ascended to get help, and a third diver attempted to descend to Eric's location. But even he had to turn back limited visibility. Depth pressure and dangerously high oxygen levels in his own breathing gas made it impossible to assist. At 11:35 a.m., just 23 minutes after Eric entered the water, Diver 3 was seen surfacing without him. That moment confirmed the worst. Eric Hahn was still somewhere deep inside, and hope of saving him was gone. The surface team made a difficult decision: stop all rescue attempts and focus on getting the remaining divers out safely. The mission had officially shifted from a rescue to a recovery operation, with the heavy understanding that one of their own was now lost in the depths. Later that afternoon, at 4 p.m., a professional recovery team from the Missouri Highway Patrol arrived at the site. Using advanced technical diving methods, they located Eric Hahn's body at a depth of 200 feet, around 61 meters. It was a somber moment for everyone involved. His body was found with the rebreather loop open and out of his mouth, and the bailout regulator in place but gently free-flowing. Importantly, his gas tank still had breathing gas inside, confirming that he hadn't run out of air. The post-recovery investigation focused on the equipment, gas mixtures, and dive logs. Experts discovered a critical problem. The diluent gas Eric was using lacked enough helium. Without helium, deep dives can cause nitrogen narcosis, a condition that impairs thinking and reaction time, like being drunk underwater. At the same time, his dive computer and gas logs showed that he had likely added too much oxygen manually at 190 feet, causing dangerously high oxygen levels in his breathing loop. This combination impaired judgment from narcosis and oxygen toxicity from over-oxygenation created the perfect storm. It likely caused the sudden panic and seizure witnessed by Diver 3. The equipment itself didn't fail. The issue was with gas planning and how it was managed during the dive. The findings were heartbreaking, especially for a diver as skilled as Eric. One small mistake with breathing gas levels had turned a well-planned mission into a tragedy that no one could reverse. The loss of Eric Hahn left a lasting impact on everyone who was part of that dive and the entire cave diving community. What happened that day wasn't caused by reckless behavior or broken equipment. It was a series of small decisions made in a high-pressure environment that led to a tragic ending. The cave didn't show mercy. Nature never does. Eric's story is more than just a sad incident. It's a powerful reminder that technical diving is unforgiving. Deep underwater, there is no room for guessing, no second chances, and no shortcuts. Proper gas planning, strict adherence to safe operating depths, and careful monitoring of oxygen levels are not optional. They are the line between life and death. His story also highlights how even experienced divers can become victims of gas toxicity and narcosis, especially when they push the limits. And in a place like Roaring River, cave cold, dark, deep, and full of unexpected challenges, those limits come faster than most expect. The lesson? Always dive with a clear plan, the right equipment, and total respect for the environment you're entering. Never ignore your training. Don't take chances, even small ones. Because down there, you don't get warnings, you only get consequences. Eric Hahn's final dive is now part of diving history, not just as a tragedy, but as a teaching moment. For every diver who hears this story, let it serve as a voice in the dark, whispering the truth. Prepare like your life depends on it, because it does.